Oh my goodness, when it's all said and done, this probate process is so long. What, when can I expect to have my inheritance or the assets that were given to me or given to people in my family or people I love or people I know? When will we receive those? When, if I'm the personal representative, do I actually give out those funds or those funds, or how long does it take to actually do this? So we're going to look at that today, the distribution of assets in a probate case in North Carolina. What is going on, everyone? This is Courtney Rollins from Estate Pro Service and the Life in Transitions Experts podcast. Here, where we help folks through the biggest life challenges and changes and transitions, such as the transition of life, such as preparing for that transition, as well as making sure your assets and the funds that you have accumulated over your time are protected. On this podcast, I claim myself as a Durham County probate expert. And I want to again say that when I say expert, I'm not saying that that's a destination or a final end all, or that I know everything in probate in North Carolina. It's claiming for me that I am dedicated and committed to learning as much as I can, applying what I learn to the cases that I come across, to the family members that I come across, to help you and help them streamline the probate process. And if I'm doing my job properly, helping folks recognize how to avoid probate while we're still alive by creating the right structure, legal remedies, and instruments available to us to help us protect that wealth that we accumulate, as I said, and to share that wealth over time to other folks. So let's just hop right in. Of course, must say that I'm not an attorney and I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my opinions given from the experience that and the time that I spend in the probate office in Durham, North Carolina, and working with other professionals in different trainings, masterminds, and constantly learning, reading, helping folks, speaking to folks. And this is the way I generate business for myself. I am highly focused on helping people through the probate process, and particularly those who have real estate, because that's where I'm able to come in and actually just quite frankly monetize or make a profit for the work that I'm doing. The other services that I provide are usually more so for the goodwill, for the support, and for the help. And when there is a case involved that does have real estate, that's when I hope that I've earned the right to be able to help that family in, either purchase the property myself or help them get it listed. And yeah, so it's an awesome, cool, great, I feel like, niche to be a part of, because you're helping people in times where some of the most challenging times in their life, and not many people go through probate often. Hopefully, if you've gone through it once, you've just realized how challenging and long and painful it can be, and you've decided to take the steps to make sure your family doesn't have to go through it again, or that the people in your family have set up the right steps so that when they do pass away, they don't have you and their family members go through that again. But it does happen. It happens all the time. People are passing away without wills, without trust, all the time, and it requires that property be probated or that estate be probated. And so, just to take a little step back for folks, if you're wondering what probate is in the United States, it's an international process as well for folks. But in the United States, probate is when someone does pass away. Someone has to be responsible for making sure the estate debts are settled, making sure the estate's loans and or even claims against them are settled, as well as ensuring that any assets or inheritance are distributed properly. And that's what we're looking at today, how assets are distributed properly. So the personal representative is key to this. The personal representative is the one who is designated as the person, again, responsible for the management of the estate. They're either going to be assigned through the will, and in that case, they're called the executor. Sometimes in some state, they recognize the word executrix for gender, but in most states, it's becoming more just executor regardless of gender. If their person dies intestate, in other words, they die without a last will or testament, then that court will appoint an administrator or appoint a personal representative, and they're called an administrator at that time. But the personal representative is responsible in North Carolina, responsible for taking the inventory of all the personal property assets, debts, everything that is accumulated has been accumulated by the estate, and they have to manage that to make sure that they pay all creditors, taxes that are assessed, and pay all the administrative fees. Now, once that's paid for, once all the creditors that are validated are paid, once all the taxes that are assessed by the estate are paid, once the administration of the probate process is paid, then the executor can use the rest of the funds remaining to pay out the estate's beneficiaries in accordance to the deceased party's last will and testament. So that's when you actually, after all this stuff is cleared out, whatever's remaining, you're going to pay it out then. Now, if there's not a will, then the assets are distributed in accordance to the Intestate Succession Act. Yes, and if you go to my website, or if you click on the link, go to estateproservice.com/blog, or look at this episode. I think it's episode 37. It will be. There is a link to the Intestate Succession Act, or you can just look up the Intestate Succession Act. It's chapter 29 of the general statute. So what happens to assets when someone dies without a will, right? In North Carolina, if you die without a valid will, then the relatives have to be verified, and they'll inherit the assets and personal property determined by if there's living children or parents there. So let's break down a couple of scenarios here. Let's break down 6. Number 1, if the descendant is only survived by the spouse, then the spouse is going to inherit the entirety of the personal property remaining that was formerly owned. That's pretty simple right there. That's North Carolina. Goes right to the surviving spouse. This, again, we're talking about if it's without a will. If they're survived by a spouse and one child, then the spouse is going to receive up to $30,000 of the personal property, and then the remaining amount is divided evenly between the spouse and the child. In other words, they still get half. So the spouse is going to get up to $30,000 and half of whatever is remaining, and the other half goes to the child or the descendant of the child. So grandkids can get are able to legally receive inheritance as well if there's no will dictating how the funds are going to be distributed. Now, let's say you leave behind a spouse and 2 or more children or children of children. Now, in this situation, the spouse still will inherit the $30,000, up to $30,000 of the passed away spouse's personal property, plus 1/3 of the remaining personal property. In other words, the remaining 2/3, actually, though, is split evenly among the surviving spouse and the 2 children. So, in other words, each person gets 1/3 if there's a spouse and 2 children. That makes sense. So the spouse gets $30,000, and they will get 1/3 of the remaining amount along with the 2 children. Now, if there's a spouse and parents are still alive, then the surviving spouse is going to receive up to $50,000. So it increases of the deceased personal property, and then the personal property or the remaining amount is split evenly among the surviving spouse and the parents of the deceased. And so again, if there are parents there, it's you get up to $50,000, and then you're going to split the remaining amount evenly among all remaining parents. Now, if only the parents are survived, then the estate is actually divided among them. So both parents will inherit half the deceased property or receive the complete one if there's only one parent surviving. There's some interesting stuff here. And if only the children of the descendants survive the deceased, the entire estate is shared or divided equally among all folks, all children. Now, let's say there's no surviving spouse, children, or parents at the time of the descendant's death, then the deceased's estate, including the real estate and property, is then split evenly among verified distant family members. This can include parents, siblings, grandparents, uncles, and aunts, and other relatives. There really isn't an exact arrangement for great-great-grandchildren or relatives that are born after the death. So after the great-great-grandchildren, they're still technically they're the descendants. The descendants. I'm looking for the word. The descendants, not heirs, but descendants. Yeah, that's why I'm getting descendant and decedent messed up. I hope I wasn't saying descendant when I was meant to say decedent. I sometimes say that, but apologize. What I'm saying is that the decedents, they're still descendants of the decedent, but there's not really a specific arrangement that says they're going to receive these funds or not. So if a general inheritance of the money that's not payable out of the predetermined fund is set forth by the will, but there's not enough funds or other personal property within the estate to pay all the beneficiaries, then the personal representative will need to prorate the remaining amount between all those recipients. Okay. All right. So The personal representative should make sure, please make sure you keep a record of all the money that's distributed during this process. You'll need it during the accounting stage of the probate to be able to close out the estate officially. Now, this is, again, it can sound like a lot because it actually, is. And if you need assistance following the guideline or helping streamline your probate process, make sure you contact a probate professional. Of course, you need to contact an attorney. If you need help with all of those things, you can contact us at Estate Pro Service LLC. We have connect to a nationwide network of vetted professionals that can serve and help you make sure, again, we streamline the process for you and make this as hopefully as painless as it possibly can be. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. We can definitely get on the phone or a Zoom or a call, free consultation right there at estateproservice.com. And we'd love to chat with you. If you are a professional and you want to share what you're doing, maybe you're an estate attorney, a family attorney, perhaps you're a real estate professional, investor, wholesaler who works closely in probate, and you want to be a part of the show, I would love to interview you. I'd love to speak with you. I would love for you to join the Life in Transitions Experts Facebook group and YouTube channel to help us continue to reach many people and grow. So, of course, hit the like, subscribe, give a review, all that great stuff that helps me grow, helps us reach more people. All right, folks, rising tides, it lifts all sails. Peace.